So you have a panic attack every time you hear the heartbeat and go down within the first 10 seconds of every single chase you've ever been in, and you want to know how you can loop the killer better so your friends don't make fun of you for not knowing how to loop? Well, my name is Electrified DBD, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to loop the killer. So first off, I'm going to be explaining what looping is. Looping is when you go around objects, mainly pallets and windows, to prolong being in chase with the killer, so that you buy time for your teammates to complete generators and allow you to escape. In all reality, looping is futile, and if you're up against a killer with half a brain cell, eventually you'll go down. But you want to make sure that you waste as much of the killer's time as possible before you go down. That is what looping is, so now I'm going to tell you guys how to loop correctly. If you want to make sure you're looping around a pallet or looping a window so you can either stun the killer and get distance, or use the window which the killer has to vault or go around to get distance so you can get to the next pallet, or window, or map tile, or whatever. If the killer does not try to mind game, I'll get to what mind gaming is in a minute, then you should be able to loop one window 3 times or one pallet 3 times generally. Sometimes you have to loop less, and sometimes you have to loop more times, and you just kind of have to make sure you're paying attention and that you know what you're doing. That brings me to my next tip, which is to always look behind you to see what the killer is doing and if the killer is behind you, trying to mind game you, and to see how far the killer is behind you. So, you know, if you have to drop the pallet then, or if you can wait and loop one more time. This is an easy thing that you can start doing today, but can improve your looping immediately and immensely. I see so many survivors looping the killer and not looking behind them, and that just does you a disservice, because the killer can then easily mind game you and get a hit off. The next thing I'm going to talk about is what mind gaming is and how to combat it. Mind gaming is something that killers will try to do and catch you off guard to get a hit off on you. For example, if you're going one way around the pallet, then the killer could go the other way to try and catch you off guard and get a hit off. Of course, if you're looking behind you, then it is almost impossible for the killer to catch you off guard. And a killer may also try and do what's called moonwalking, which is walk backwards to hide the red stains so that you think they're going the other way, but they're actually going the wrong way. So you just have to be aware of this and try and adjust if you realize that a killer is doing this. And another way to mind game is when a survivor drops a pallet and then goes to one way around a loop and then turns around quickly to go back the other way once the survivor vaults the pallet to get an easier hit. You just need to be aware that some killers are going to do this and mind game. Most high-ranked killers will do this, so you can employ strategies like faking a vault over the pallet by running up to it and not vaulting it, or by things like just waiting longer to vault because you know you have enough time and you just have to time it right so you don't get mind gamed. This is easier on some loops than others, which brings me to my next topic, which is safe and unsafe loops. The longer a loop is, the harder it is to mind game, because the survivor is going to have more time to react, therefore making longer loops safe pallets and shorter loops unsafe. Because at unsafe pallets, it is very easy to mind game those pallets, so generally you want to leave a loop unsafe soon as after you drop the pallet to avoid getting mind gamed. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about today is how to loop the shack, and I'm going to show you some gameplay examples while I'm talking about this. This is also known as the best loop in the entire game. So many survivors loop the shack very wrong, so I think it's important that I tell you guys how to loop the shack correctly. So you want to loop around the shack this way, vaulting the window from the inside of the shack and then going around to the left and continuing on. The killer may try to mind game this, but again, if you're looking behind you and paying attention, you shouldn't have too much trouble. You want to loop the window 3 times and leave the shack if it's possible during the early game. You want to leave the shack pallet up as long as it's physically possible so you can use it as a get out of jail free card in the late game when you need it. The shack pallet is unmind gameable, and the only way to mind game it is if the survivor is literally brain dead. So save the shack pallet as long as you can, and also try to look behind you to see if the killer is going the other way and trying to mind game you. I usually sit right here after I vault the window and look in third person to see if they're coming to cut me off or not. Then I can plan my next move based on that. In the early game, it is definitely worth it to take a hit for the shack pallet or god pallet, and it even might be worth it to go down for god pallet. You just kind of got to use your judgment. One last tip I want to go over is that whenever you're stuck in a dead zone or a place with no pallets or windows to loop around, then your best bet is to try and juke the killer with a 360 or 180 or a spin or something. And if the killer's bad, you should live a little longer. that's all the tips I have for you guys today. You guys should be masters at looping by now, and I wish you all the best of luck putting these tips to use in your games. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe down below, and check out my socials like Twitter and Twitch and my previous videos in the description below. Also in the description below is a Google form that you can fill out if you want to be coached and have your VOD reviewed on the channel. You could be in a YouTube video, so check that out if you do want to. And with that said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.